If you're not a US citizen and you get arrested for a crime, you can't follow the same steps that a US citizen would. Normally, when someone gets arrested, the first thing they want to do is figure out how to post bail so they can get out of jail and deal with the criminal case later once they're out of jail. If you're not a US citizen, though, if you take that course of action, it could be a disaster for both your criminal case and your status in this country. I'm criminal defense attorney Joe Mitkevichus, and this is the number one thing that I wish all non citizens knew before they got arrested. Please, before you post bail in a criminal case, talk to a lawyer who understands the immigration consequences of criminal cases. The reason that it's important to talk to a lawyer who understands the immigration consequences of criminal cases before posting bail is that often, if you're not a US citizen, when you post bail, instead of being let out of the jail, immigration will come and pick you up, and then we can't address the criminal case. So, if the criminal case if those charges are something that's going to cause negative immigration consequences, if those charges are something that's going to get you deported or cause you to be inadmissible into the country, well, then we want to be able to fight that case and try and beat it or try and get it to a result that doesn't have negative immigration consequences before you end up in the hands of immigration. If you're in immigration detention, I can't help you with the criminal case, and I can't do my job to make sure that the criminal case results in a way that doesn't cause negative immigration consequences. And so if you wait, you do have to stay in jail, which is a really, really difficult thing to accept. But if you don't wait and you post bail before you understand what the consequences are going to be, there's a likelihood that you're going to end up in a situation in which we can't help you either on the criminal side or on the immigration side. And so it's very important that you understand what exactly is going to happen when you post bond and what exactly you need to happen in the criminal case in order to avoid those immigration consequences. I have two examples from clients of mine that are going to make this very clear. The first example is a domestic violence case. It was a young couple. The wife came to my office. She didn't speak any English. She was pregnant and had a toddler, and she was freaking out because her husband was in jail on domestic violence charges. She said it didn't happen. There were no injuries and there were no witnesses. So that means this is a case that I have a very high likelihood of getting dismissed, but I need him present here in order to do that. I explained to them that he needed to wait to post bond because if he posted bond, he wouldn't get out of jail. He would just end up in immigration detention and I wouldn't be able to help him. We made it a few weeks into the case and then he couldn't take another day in jail. So he convinced his wife to post the bond against my advice. And he, as I knew he would, got picked up by immigration the next morning and brought to an immigration detention center in the middle of nowhere in Louisiana. So he ended up spending 3 months in that immigration detention facility, and then he was deported. Now, compare that to another case I had in which my client was charged with aggravated battery with a deadly weapon. The deadly weapon was a vehicle, and my client had run over another guy with his car. Another guy almost died. So when I got to my client, he was terrified of going to prison and he was asking me about posting bonds so that he could just get deported. He wanted to just go back to his country and not come back here because he was terrified of going to prison with the seriousness of these charges. For a minute, they thought that the other guy might not survive. And so it was even scarier at that point. But he did end up surviving. And I convinced my client that he should stay in jail and let me see what I can do and see if I can figure out a way to get him to stay in the country and not go to prison. The actual story here was that my client went to this location and he was ambushed by two guys with machetes who broke his windshield and the driver and passenger side windows. And as he was trying to escape, he got his car stuck in a ditch. And when he launched his car out of the ditch, he hit one of the other guys and almost killed him. He stayed on the scene for EMS and law enforcement to arrive, but he didn't speak any English. So the other guy was the only one who told his story, which was a crazy story that made no sense. But they arrested my client on this other guy's story, and then they were prosecuting him. We got the evidence, And the evidence supported my client's story. And it did not at all support the alleged victim's story. We filed a demand for speedy trial. The prosecutor got really mad. I did it because I really wanted the case to go quickly because I was worried that if it went the normal 6 or 9 or 12 months that a felony case goes before we can get it to a trial, that he would eventually give in and post bond and I wouldn't be able to help him. Luckily, he didn't. The case did get dismissed eventually. And when the local jail called immigration, they said that was the only reason that they were holding him. And if he was innocent of that, then they were going to let him walk. And so he walked free. And a couple weeks ago, I saw him outside the Best Buy. He gave me a hug. He had his buddy take a picture of the two of us together, and he thanked me for saving his life. That wouldn't have happened if he had posted bond at any point prior to me getting that case dismissed. We wouldn't have been able to do that. Same is true if the young man who posted bond had listened to my advice and just stayed in jail for a few weeks longer. There's at least a chance that once his case was dismissed, he also would have walked out of the jail.